All right, so it's day 10, and I'm pretty happy. Continue to make progress. Last night, I didn't eat anything bad. Um, I realized that I was looking at protein bars last night, and most of them have canola oil poison, vegetable oils poison, fructose syrup poison, corn syrup poison. Most protein bars are so terrible for you. But I found these ones, and damn it, oh yeah, they're called RX bars, and they only have four ingredients, all natural. Um, though I did notice when I ate a lot of those, I gained weight. I think there's a lot of carbs in it, but they're safe carbs. So, you don't want to eat a whole box of them every single night. But I had three of them, and I had one kind bar. I have to look more closely at kind bars. I gotta see if there's any vegetable oils in them. Because vegetable oils are fucking poison to your brain and your body. And, like, if you cut those out of your diet, mental health improvement, physical health improvement, any sort of health problems you got, weird health problems, skin conditions, rashes, um, even like juvenile arthritis, a lot of times you cut those out. You cut the vegetable oils out, symptoms go away. Depression, symptoms go away. Fucking anxiety, symptoms go away. It's amazing how much changing your diet can profoundly improve your quality of life. But people don't know these things. But that's one of the things I want to do is Dave Asprey has all this stuff figured out. He's the father of biohacking. His health used to, like, what happened was he was a Silicon Valley CEO, made like $6 million by the time he was 26, but his brain wasn't working. He forgot things all the time, and then he tried working out, and also he had heart issues, heart arrhythmias. He had so many things wrong with him, like a dozen things wrong with him. It was amazing that he didn't drop dead, right? Well, if he didn't fix his health issues, he would have dropped dead probably by the time he was 40, because his health got so messed up, mostly due to an exposure to toxic black mold when he was a child. That will ruin all of your health. And people don't know about this. 1 in 4 US households have toxic mold in it. And people don't even think about it. Dave Asprey helped make this documentary called Moldy that explains it. We really need to share that more. If you got weird health problems, hire a mold specialist to come into your house and see if there's any toxic mold in there. If your children are having weird health problems, a lot of times you as an adult won't have weird health problems, but you got a child with the younger they are, the weaker their blood-brain barrier, and the more um, being exposed to that harmful crap when you're young can mess you up for your entire life. It's so depressing to think about the fact that there are probably millions of people across the globe that suffer to some extent from the effects of toxic mold, and there's no major movement to do anything about it. Like, there's so many things that are non-political, bipartisan issues where if our political leaders actually gave a fuck about us and are actually wise and actually love knowledge and are actually always learning about different things that affect humanity, we could have do a lot of things to improve society that are completely non nonpartisan. So many things that are like that. Um, I also have other things, but that's not the point of today's video. I'll make another video about that. I'm gonna make a video 100 tips from Dave Asprey, easy tips to implement in your life to make your life better, to feel better, to have less physical and mental health issues, less symptoms from them, by improving your overall health, improving your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Because spirituality, whether you believe in spiritual things or not, there are spiritual parts of our brain. We have spiritual experiences, right? Even without psychedelics, I've had spiritual experiences without psychedelics, and before I took psychedelics, I had spiritual experiences. And people have spiritual experiences in all sorts of settings, whether it's a Catholic church or an ancient ceremony from an indigenous tribe. We're capable of having them, and so there's a spiritual part of our brain, and at the very least, um, even if you don't believe there's just humans beings have a soul, there's a spiritual part of our mind, and it's important that we pay attention to that because it has needs too. Like the spiritual part of our mind also, it craves purpose and meaning, meaning in our lives, meaningful things like helping other people to get out of unnecessary human suffering, giving back to people, But whether, and there's millions of ways to do that. There's millions of ways to help other people in effective ways. Like you could invest in a nonprofit that helps to educate people about the negative effects of toxic mold. You could mentor young people. You could help expand mentorship programs across the United States. You could improve the education system. You could invest in private schools like the Van Dam Academy, or schools like, well, there's Marva Collins is now deceased, but schools like Marva Collins where grade school children, just like at the Van Dam Academy, are reading and writing at a college level by the time they're in sixth or seventh grade because they inspire the children with a love of reading, a love of writing, a love of learning, a love of discussing intellectual and not just intellectual but meaningful issues, meaningful things, meaningful discussions, meaningful debates. Um, if you inspire students and you sell them on the value of knowledge, wisdom, and the skills of reading, writing, and speaking, like if you can write well, you can change the world. You know, like for example, our country is the United States exists because Thomas Paine wrote the pamphlet Common Sense, which outlined why we should rebel against the British Empire, what it had done wrong, how it had what it had done to the American people, the people on the American continent, and why we should form a new nation and what the vision of that new nation would be, liberty, freedom, all that. Um, Without a pamphlet, we would not have had soldiers volunteer to engage in the Revolutionary War. We would have been outnumbered, we would have been defeated, and we would currently be a British colony, kind of like Canada. And yeah, Canada is basically still a British colony. I mean, the Queen of England actually shut down the Canadian Parliament like 7, 8, I think maybe 10 years ago. Look it up; it's true. I'll find an article about that and I'll put it in the description because a lot of people will be like, "That's bullshit, bro. That's a conspiracy theory, dude." It was covered in the mainstream media. Fuck you. It's true. The Queen of England shut down the Canadian Parliament because she didn't like what they were doing. The Queen of England actually does have power, believe it or not. They just keep it on the DL, you know? They keep it in just like high level magazines like Fortune and stuff, and the type of uh, media that only high level income people read. They're not going to feature it on on CNN. They might have an article on the CNN website because no one reads it, but they won't have a discussion about it like on live television because those are for the idiots and they want to keep the idiots in the dark about important things. If you watch television to get your news, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. Um, why would you trust the corporate media? Five old white guys control over 90% of all media in the United States. You don't think they have an agenda? You don't think those billionaires hang out with the billionaires that run pharmaceutical companies, own the pharmaceutical companies, that own the military industrial complex companies, that own the energy companies, that own the Wall Street companies, that run the Wall Street companies like Goldman Sachs? You don't think they're in the same social circle? Who do you think billionaires hang out with? Other billionaires. And guess what? Because they're a tight knit social circle of like the top 300, 500 people at the very pinnacle of wealth and power in the United States, they all hang out together. And yeah, they tend to have similar goals in terms of keeping their wealth, maintaining their power, and, you know, getting more wealth and getting more power because that's what they live for. That's why they have so much wealth and power because they live for wealth and power and they always want more. And they always want to have more control over the American people. They look over like they look at the majority of us as complete fucking idiots or fucking high IQ failures who lack the self discipline and the strength to overcome the barriers that they've constructed in our way, like our fucked up education system, which is still the Prussian model of education from the 18th century, designed to create obedient soldiers, and then adopted in the United States to create obedient factory workers, and has been updated for the information age. It still doesn't teach people how to differentiate between things that are true and false, which is really important in the information age because all we're doing is sorting through information and trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong. And there's millions of issues, whether it's diet, nutrition, anything involving fitness, um, parenting, relationships, how to be happy. There are all these opposing viewpoints, religion, whatever. There's all these opposing viewpoints, and it's very complex. And it's like, how do you figure out who's correct and who's wrong? Well, you need to know how to use logic. You need to know how to do research. You need to know how to study opposing points of view. You have to know how to synthesize information from various different sources, and then come to your own conclusion that incorporates your understanding of all those different sources and what you learn from all of them, um, and then come to a conclusion that is more likely to be correct than one that is based solely on emotion. That every you won't always be correct when you use the logic to come to a conclusion because we're irrational. Sometimes we don't use logic perfectly. Sometimes we torture logic because there's something that we want to believe and for emotional reasons, and then we go in there with confirmation bias when we look at the opposing viewpoints. We don't abide by logic, and we don't even realize it on a conscious level. We would if we had more self-awareness, and if you have a self-awareness practice, you'll get better and better at recognizing when you're falling prey to cognitive biases like groupthink, confirmation bias, the semwise reflex, recency bias, anchor bias, all that sort of stuff. And studying those confirmation biases is very important too, and needs to be part of our education system. Because if you're aware of those cognitive biases, then you're less likely to fall prey to them because you can be like, if you develop the self awareness through journaling and emotional processing and being open about your emotions and all that, and being vulnerable and being willing to admit when you're wrong and having a commitment to the truth, even if that truth makes you sad or uncomfortable or temporarily depressed. Um, and of course, teaching students the skills to manage their mental health in such a way where if they do suffer from any sort of mental health issue, they know how to deal with it by how understanding the most effective means of alleviating mental health issues by studying that, looking at the opposing viewpoints, and then coming to conclusions as a result. Like, for example, if you have trauma, EMDMR is highly available and highly effective and way more effective than just talk therapy. Not to say that talk therapy is useless, but um, if you had to choose between the two, you'd go with EMDMR. EMDMR. Why is it so hard for me to say? Um, is It is EMDR. Yes, EMDR. Okay. Anyway, so being aware of things like that, being aware, for example, if you have PTSD, that there are so many different solutions that you can do ketamine therapy and MDMA therapy. You can do psilocybin therapy. You can do iboga therapy. You can do ayahuasca. There are so many ways where you don't take a drug every day, but instead do this thing once, have this one experience that is juxtaposed between therapy beforehand and therapy afterwards. Therapy beforehand to prepare you for the experience and help you figure out what your intentions are during the experience, like what do you want to get out of it, communicating that to them. And then when you're going through the trip, your therapist is there to help guide you through the trip such that you get the answers you're looking for and get the the forgiveness of yourself that you want, the forgiveness of others, the acceptance that you want, the acceptance of what happened to you, the acceptance of the malevolent malevolent side of human nature, the acceptance that there's an unimaginable level of beauty and virtue to humanity, and also an unbelievable level of malevolence and evil to humanity. And we're all capable of both. We both have an evil side and a good side. Some of us are not in touch with our evil side, but if we were put, but that's not good. You have to be in touch with your evil side in order to learn how to control it. If you're not in touch with it, then wouldn't say we have some sort of societal collapse, that person will that evil side will come out of them. They won't know how to manage it, and then they'll end up just like murdering people for food because there's the electrical grid went down or whatever, and they don't know how to deal with that situation. They're overwhelmed and they don't think rationally about how to make sure as many people as possible survive. Anyway, so I'm all over the place. I'm being very philosophical today. I've been listening to a lot of things, and also I don't know why, but I'm becoming more and more intelligent and thinking about things more. And I think this is a good demonstration that from eating healthy and improving my sleep and listening to one of the things I started doing is besides making videos every day is listening to educational relevant content every day. So I'm learning stuff from Dave Asprey. I'm learning stuff from Dr. K from Healthy Gamer. I'm learning from Jordan Peterson. I already learned from Jordan Peterson, but I learned a great deal from Jordan Peterson in the past. I haven't learned anything new, but I might go back and watch his stuff again in the future after I've changed dramatically, because then everything that he says I can start to think about how I can actually apply it, because I've gone from just learning knowledge and wisdom to learning how to apply it to my life every day. So that's really powerful. Anyway, so yeah, I'm planning to run for school board too. I picked up an application for that, and I want to use that opportunity to go door to door and talk to people about real issues and talk about talk about the education system. So I get to talk about my paradigm of education, what we should be trying to do, and I'll later run for local office. I'll probably jump from school board to state office, ideally. Because I don't think there's not much I'd like to do on this local level. But that might be me being ignorant, because I think there's a lot of things you can do on the local level, especially if you're like a mayor, that can dramatically improve the lives of the people in that township. But yeah, local, I like to do local office and state office. I should probably do both. I should probably go from school board to local office, so I'll understand local politics, and that'll give me a better understanding of how things work at that level. And then I'll go to the state level, and then at the state level, I will push for legislation that's bipartisan that improves the lives of people, like legislation to help deal with the mold epidemic. Maybe legislation to help deal with the loneliness epidemic, for example, starting raising funds for that support mentorship programs. You know, um, so that they can go to activities, so that the mentors can take the kids out to dinner, take them out to events like MMA matches, if it's out of a boxing gym, if it's an artistic mentoring program for kids that are, into art and music and all sorts of stuff like that, taking them to, the Philadelphia, whatever orchestra, taking them out to plays, taking them out to concerts, all that sort of stuff. Um, like that would be good. And yeah, to create a grant for it, for mentorship programs, and then reach out to various different organizations. They ask them if they would like to start the mentorship program. Let them know there's a grant, and then they can use the money to go out to activities with the kids. So um, yeah, hopefully that wouldn't make people who just want to get the grant so they can just go to concerts for free and all that sort of stuff. I think the grant, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But anyway, there's a lot of things I want to do that, and I have so many ideas to improve things that are bipartisan. For example, changing driver education courses such that in every driver ed course in every high school, parents of kids who have died come to the class and talk about how someone who is texting and driving killed their kids, or people who've lost a brother or a sister, or lost a father or mother. I think it's best if it's children, especially young kids that died, because the more emotionally tinged it is, and the more the guest speakers can convey their grief and sadness over what a drunk driver did and killing their kids, or a texting and driving did and lost their children, that will make those kids far less likely to engage in texting and driving and in drunk driving, especially the young teenage girls, because they tend to be more compassionate on average. So, for example, even if the boys are kind of dicks and like, I can text and drive, right? I can drink and drive, or they're just less compassionate in general. The girls will be like, no, you're not texting and driving. I will get out of the car, pull over. You shouldn't be doing that. Blah blah blah. Or if they want to drink and drive, like, no, let's get an Uber. Remember about those? You forget about those parents who lost their fucking 5-year-old daughter because of someone who's drinking and driving? Like, you are, and then you explain, like, listen, yeah, there are people who drink and drive hundreds of times and never kill anybody, but there's people that drink and drive once and kill people. You know, it basically, and it's not like the lottery. It's a lot more likely than that. I mean, the number one killer of people between the ages of 18 and 25 are car accidents. That statistic means nothing to teenage people. Um, the reason that having a guest speaker come in who just recently lost a child to texting and driving, and another one to drunk driving or driving under the influence of drugs comes in. The reason that works is because statistics don't hit us emotionally, whereas the stories of how someone killed their daughter on accident because they're thinking that will stick in there. That gets through their fucking skulls. Of course, it won't work for everyone, but I think it will have a hugely profound effect. And I think after the driver ed course in high school, I think at the age of 21, they should have to take a course again, where once again there are guest speakers that come in and talk about how they've lost loved ones due to texting and driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Just as a refresher, you know, just a 1 hour course, that they can take at any local facility, um, in order to keep their driver's license, and they'll have a year to get that course done and out of the way. And yeah, I think that would be good. Um, I'm not a big government intervention guy. I think whenever the government intervenes in the economy and stuff like that, it's usually bad. But I think there are certain things the government could do that would work well and actually improve humanity. I'm not ideological. I'm not on the right. I'm not on the left. I think if you identify with either side, you're buying into the ideology. You're centering your identity around a political ideology, especially if you're like, I'm a conservative, or I'm a libertarian, or I'm a liberal, or I'm a socialist. It's like, okay, now you can't think outside that box without having an identity crisis. Plus, you're going to formulate all your friendships around, you know, the people that share your ideology. The more passionate you are about politics, the more important it is, the more is cemented as a core part of your identity, of who you are, and the more you're going to form your friendships based on that. Because if you're a hardcore conservative, you're not going to have a lot of lefty friends. You're going to have conservative friends. And then if all of a sudden you start having left wing beliefs and start hating on Trump, well, those conservatives might not want to hang out with you anymore, or they would treat you differently and not let you out to fucking things. Um, Unless you just chose not to discuss politics anymore. I mean, that's also an option too. But it's a fear that people have. It is, and it's bigger on the left. I think nowadays it's a bigger problem on the left because the left is growing more and more intolerant of different views. When it used to be the right that was way more intolerant of opposing viewpoints. Like they used to you know, arrest people or banish them from the United States for being communists. Um, and now it's the left who's like, really just like if they hate Trump and you're a Trump supporter but you don't like talk about Trump all the time, you're not saying, but they just find out by looking at your Facebook that you have a positive opinion of Trump. A lot of these people with and Trump derangement syndrome is real. Sorry to say, like you know, the right has its problems too. I'm not saying the right is better than the left or anything. I'm just saying, they have different issues and different problems. Um, People with a TDS will not be friends with you anymore. So if you're on the left and then, you know, you think outside the box and you think, Well, I don't agree with Trump's economic policies, but you know what? He did pretty well in foreign policy. The Abraham Accords, no new wars. Maybe it wasn't so bad, you know? And really, his policies were pretty moderate policies, except for the immigration thing. I don't like that, but his foreign policy was good. You can't think that. Well, you can think that, but you can't. Well, if you think it, that's dangerous. So if you're left, you can't think that because then when people say negative things about Trump and say yada 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 and this and that, you won't be able to join in on the hate as much, and they might find out that you don't you actually think he was better on foreign policy than Obama, in which case you're kicked out of that friend group. You lose your social circle. You lose the people you're closest to. You lose the people you can call in a crisis or an emergency that'll come to your aid. Hell, you could lose your relationship with your family members if your mother and father and your siblings are all super hardcore Trump haters, or they're all hardcore Trump supporters, and then you disagree. That could severely damage your relationship with your family. So you're not going to think outside that box. Because God forbid you have a nuanced position on anything. Like, God forbid that you're not like pro Trump or anti Trump, but you have like, ambivalent feelings, like certain policies you dislike and certain policies you do like. You have to either be 100% pro Trump or 100% anti Trump, and it's ridiculous. Anyway, this video is becoming too long. I am procrastinating because I don't want to revise my life planner, so I'm going to make a new video.